Hey guys, Cronus Falls here, and today I am bringing you some data mined material from the game. Panda Killer was the first one to bring this out on YouTube, and so props to him. This is all information coming from him, but this does seem like it's going to be in the Battle Pass 2 as far as we can tell. There's a lot of champions here, and before you get your hopes up, no, there's nothing in here that's going to synergize well with Grubtuck or whatever the heck his name is. That champion is just bad for most stuff, unfortunately, and nothing here is going to help him out. You also might be wondering, is there any more poison sensitivity coming out? Because Frozen Banshee's the only one in the game who has it, and they said that there's going to be a 50% version as well. And I can tell you, no, of course not. This is Polarium. Why would they put out another champion with a debuff that they just introduced to the game? No, there's going to be no more poison sensitivity in this batch of champions, so nothing to pair with her. But that being said, there is some exciting stuff in here, so let's go ahead and check it out. First of all, there is some love for the Barbarians. So we have a rare here. His name's Exiled Sorcerer. His A1 attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 45% chance when booked of placing a 30% decreased defense buff for 2 turns. So that is the small version. Nothing too crazy there. Decreased defense is obviously helpful. If it were 60%, he'd be really good. But, I mean, 30%, he's decent. It's a rare after all. And on to his A2 here. Let's go ahead and check this out. So attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a 15% decreased speed debuff and a 15% weakened debuff for 2 turns. So when booked, this is going to be a 75% chance, it looks like. So 15% decreased speed and 15% weaken. Again, pretty decent for a rare. You know, these are both the smaller versions, but they are AoE. Decreased speed is actually very strong, even though it might not seem like it. Speed is the most important stat in the game, so the more turns you're taking compared to your opponent, the better. And 15% weaken, you know, you're getting some more damage in. That's guaranteed value. So, I mean, overall, pretty good. And he is a rare. This is going to be pretty good for the faction crypts, just because Barbarians don't have a whole lot of support there. So, yeah, I mean, pretty decent. Let's go ahead and check his A3 here. Has a 75% chance of placing a 15% decreased crit rate buff and a 15% decreased crit damage debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. This books up to a 100% chance and a 3-turn cooldown. So, honestly, not great. I mean, as far as like faction crypts go or whatever, I think they only have a 15% chance crit rate, which isn't very high to begin with, so I guess it makes it 0, potentially, assuming that they do have a 0% or 15% crit rate chance, which I'm not 100% sure on. But as far as like arena, stuff like that goes, not too much value here, because I mean, you're going to assume that most champions that are built for damage in arena are going to have a 100% chance or close to it, which means that this is only going to drop it to 85, which is still really high. And 15% decreased crit damage, I mean, it's a little bit of damage mitigation, not a whole lot, so nothing too special here. And then his aura increased ally attack and faction crypts by 20%. That's potentially the worst aura in the game. Just really not much use at all. So you're probably not going to be bringing him in as your leader unless he's your only option. As far as stats go, he does have about 14k HP, which is a little, I don't know, it's okay. I think he's an attack champion, so not the worst thing in the world. 1100 attack, kind of low, but probably about in line for a rare. 925 defense, again a little low, but not too bad, especially for an attack champion. 96 speed is okay. 57% crit damage, is buffed by 7%, not that crazy. So overall, he's decent. He'll probably come into a Barbarian Faction Wars team, get you that weaken. Get you that slow, but other than that, not a whole lot of use for him that I'm seeing right now. Next, let's move on to Wandering Priest. This is a support in the Barbarians as well. He is a Spirit Affinity and a rare. So his A1 here attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 45% chance when booked of placing a 25% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns. Again, it's the small version, decent against bosses I suppose, but overall nothing amazing going on here. Let's move on to the A2. Removes all debuffs from a target ally, so a cleanse on a 3-turn cooldown is pretty good. Then heals them by 30% of their max HP and places a Veil buff on them for 2 turns. So Veil, as you know, now not only hides them from being targeted, but also makes them take, I believe, 7.5% less damage from AoE attacks. So pretty decent, and the heal books up to 50%. So it would be good if it was his max HP, but 50% of their max HP is still pretty solid. That's basically like an apothecary heal right there. And yeah, I mean, so he could come into clan boss as a cleanser potentially. His stats are pretty decent for that. He does have 17k HP, which is not bad, and 1000 defense, so you can work that up to like the 4k range with good gear. So overall, a pretty good ability here. Let's go ahead and look at his A3. Places a 15% strengthen buff and a 25% increased accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns. So this is on a 3-turn cooldown when booked. And again, pretty solid ability here. 15% strengthen buff. It is the small version, but still taking 15% less damage is nice. And 25% increased accuracy. That one's not so crazy. If you're progressing in the game and you just can't get your accuracy where you need it to, then yeah, that's pretty good. This definitely isn't an in-game kind of ability. But coming up, like let's say you're doing clan boss, you have a counterattack champion, you got your Skull Crusher or whatever, and you're hitting the brutal clan boss. This guy could definitely come in there as your cleanser, give you the strengthen, increase accuracy because maybe your Great Hall is not built up well enough and you need some more accuracy on your champions. So yeah, I think this guy is actually pretty solid. He could also have some use in faction wars. Let's go ahead and take a look at his aura. Increases ally defense and faction crypts by 20%. That's very good as far as faction wars go. Obviously, as far as auras go, it's probably still not one of the most useful. But anytime you get a defense aura, that is cool. So this guy, I think, is definitely pretty solid. He's going to do a lot for Barbarians and is a potential good clan boss pick, especially in the early game. So now let's go ahead and move on to the next champion here, which is Royal Art Mage. So he's kind of like a Merlin looking dude. He is a support epic in the Banner Lords. He's magic affinity. And let's take a look at his stats real quick. It looks like he has about 19k HP, which is not bad at all. 925 attack, but he's a support, so we're not too worried about that. 1123 defense, which is pretty solid. 108 base speed, very good. 15% crit, 50% crit damage, 30 resistance. That's all pretty standard. So his stats are looking pretty solid here for a support. Let's take a look at his A1. Attacks one enemy. Fills this champion's turn meter by 10%, fills the turn meter by 20% if his attack is critical. So you are going to want to build a crit on him, especially with his A2 here, which attacks one enemy, also attacks all other enemies if the first attack is critical. So again, you want to build crit. Each hit has a 50% chance or a 75% chance when booked of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn, so that's very good. 75% chance, AoE 3-turn cooldown. Really solid ability here, very good CC. After attacking, decreases the turn meters of each enemy without a stun debuff by 20%, so if you do get resisted, then you still decrease their turn meters, so just very good overall. Also, I mean, his base attack is low, but you could potentially build some damage on him. He is going to be a bit gear intensive, especially if you try and go that route, because you would need to build him with good attack, which is going to be hard for him, as well as, you know, speed, crit rate, accuracy. There's a lot to go with this guy. He's going to be a little gear intensive, but if you can build him well, then I think he is going to be very good for you, especially for progression purposes. I mean, a 75% chance on a stun AoE is just really good. His A3 here places a 30% increased speed buff, a 30% increased crit rate buff, and a 30% increased crit damage buff on all allies for 2 turns. This is again a very good ability as you're coming up through the game, especially it's on a 3-turn cooldown once booked. And if you're having trouble getting your crit rate to 100%, this is going to be able to help you out. He's very fast, so if you build him with some speed and his A1 boosting his turn meter, he can keep this up pretty consistently. Also in Arena, if you have him going before your damage dealers, they don't have 100% crit rate or whatever, he's going to come in there, he's going to give him the increased speed, he's going to give him the increased crit rate, the increased crit damage, and then they're going to come in and absolutely nuke some people. So really solid there. I do like it. He'd be really good to pair with someone like Arbiter or Gorgorab. Obviously Arbiter is going to be more end game, but if you can go Gorgorab into Royal Archmage, into War Maiden, into Kale, I mean, that's a really solid combo right there. Some early Arena gold 4 farming kind of stuff. So just really solid champion here. On his passive, immune to turn meter decreasing effects. Now those are not that common. In Arena, you will occasionally get like a Lysandra or a Sylar, something like that. Also in dungeons, you will get a little bit like Man-Eater or a Skull Shatterbones, is that his name? I don't remember. Anyways, you'll get some champions that are going to decrease your turn meter, and this guy will be immune to it, so that's pretty nice. And then his aura increased ally speed in the arena by 17%. So not the best aura in the game as far as speed goes. There are plenty of champions with better ones, but if you don't have one, then this is a good option. He will be best when paired with a turn meter booster, but most of the ones who do boost turn meter have some sort of aura as well. He could be good when paired with Apothecary, you know, put him as the lead and then Apothecary. They will have overlapping speed buffs, but he still brings more to the table than that. So all in all, very solid champion. He's going to be very good in dungeons. He's going to be very good in Arena for the lower levels up through early gold 4. And just a really solid champion if you can get your hands on him through the battle pass. Now let's go on to the next champion here, Inferno Golem, which I will talk a little bit more after we go over the kit, but let's just look at it first. So attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a 30% decreased crit rate debuff for 2 turns. This books up to a 70% chance. Honestly, not that helpful. Minus 30% crit rate, I guess it'll stop you from getting crit in dungeons, but overall, not a whole lot of use for that throughout the game. It is a new debuff, so they're trying to work it in, but it's just whatever. On the A2 here, attacks all enemies, has a 20% chance of placing an HP burn debuff for 2 turns. The chance of placing the debuff increases by 20% for each alive enemy. So this is very good for Spider. This is going to give everyone the chance to go for an AoE HP burn strat. It is on a 3-turn cooldown, which is better than Ultimate Gallic. You also don't have to pair him with anyone. He can just do it on his own. So very solid. He is also a defense champion with 1300 base defense. Only 95 base speed, but that's not terrible. So he also gets a 15 boost to accuracy, which is nice, and 16,680 base HP. Not bad at all. So very good stats there. Let's take a look at his A3 here. Attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of increasing the cooldowns of all skills by 2 turns on enemies under HP burn debuffs. Also places a shield buff equal to 20% of this champion's max HP on all allies for 2 turns. So this boosts up to a 70% chance when booked and comes down to a 4-turn cooldown. So a very strong ability. It's not going to matter so much against the spider because I don't believe you can increase her cooldowns, but it could be interesting in arena. You come in with someone like an Ignatius or something, pop those HP burns, and then he comes in afterwards and puts their skills on cooldown. So pretty interesting. He could have a lot of implications in arena as well. But like I said, not the greatest thing in the spider boss. And then let's take a look at his passive here. Has a 10% chance or 25 when booked of placing a fear debuff on an enemy for 1 turn whenever they receive damage from an HP burn debuff. Very good for the spider boss. It is giving you some CC on the spiderling, so hopefully they don't come back and hit you again. So very solid passive there for that purpose. And finally his aura, increased ally HP in all battles by 25%. Wish this was defense. He is a defense champion, but he does put a shield based on HP on his A3 here. It is on all allies, so that is pretty solid. Help keep them alive a little bit. But like I said, I do have some thoughts on him overall as a champion. He is an AoE HP burn champion that you're getting for free, which they already kind of did with Ultimate Gallic, but you did have to have an Amazon Prime membership for that. Oh, not for free, I'm sorry. He's coming from the Battle Pass, so you do have to pay to get him. It's basically pay to win Spider 20, which I don't have a problem with. I think it's going to make it available to a lot more players, and I think that's a good thing overall. One issue that I have is that they made him Magic Affinity. So you might think, what, did you hit your head or something? Spider 20 is Spirit. Obviously you want him to be Magic Affinity. But the biggest problem that a lot of people have is not Spider 20, it's Spider 19. And there are basically no HP burn champions out there that are good against Spider 19 except Venus. So, I mean, you think about it, you've got your Ignatius, you got your Trunda, you got your Ultimate Gallic. All of those are already Magic Affinity. So none of them are really good against Spider 19. They can still typically get the job done, but not as effectively, and you really have to think about it a lot more. If this guy came in as a Spirit Affinity, he would have been really good for Spider 19 and perfectly viable for Spider 20. And I mean, for God's sake, we have so many Magic Affinity champions in this game. Like, let's look at the champions we've looked at already. Inferno Golem, Magic Affinity. Royal Art Mage, Magic Affinity. Wandering Priestess Spirit, that's good. And Exiled Sorcerer, Magic Affinity. So 3 out of the 4 we've looked at so far are Magic Affinity. I feel like 50% or more of the champions in the game are Magic Affinity. It's just really ridiculous, but they just don't understand that players have a problem with the Force Affinity because they make all of their champions magic. So a little bit of a rant there. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off like that. But I think Plarium really needs to think when they're putting out their champions. Like, what does this game need? Yes, an AoE HP burn champion that's easily available is very nice, and it is going to help a lot of people. But if they had made it Spirit Affinity, it could have been so much better. But anyways, let's go ahead and move on now to Urost, the Soul Cage. So this guy is a Demon Spawn Legendary Void Champion. I should have mentioned on him as well, he is Demon Spawn Epic. So he is an HP champion, Urost. And on his A1 here, actually let's look at his stats first. Almost 25k HP, which is very good. Base attack's really low, don't care. Defense 1167, pretty good. Speed 95, really low for a legendary, but not the worst thing in the world. That's kind of like Rosin Scarhide. And 20 boost to resistance, 10 boost to accuracy. So pretty good overall on the stats. A1 attacks one enemy, places a shield buff on this champion equal to 10% of this champion's max HP. The shield's value increases by 1% for each poison debuff on the target. So that is pretty good. If he has, let's say, 100k HP, which you can do in the end game, shield would be 10% at base, so that would be a 10,000 shield. But let's say you're against the clan boss, for instance, and you have 10 poisons stacked up on him. Or, I mean, you're never going to have 10 poisons stacked up. Let's say 8 poisons. That's almost a 20,000 shield at that point, which is very good. Against Dragon as well, you'd probably have a lot of poisons stacked up. So he can get some pretty nutty shields out there. Also, when he is booked, that's another 15% on his shield. So actually at base, 25%, that could be a 25k shield on himself every time he does his A1. I mean, that's pretty nuts. This guy's going to be tanky as hell. He does have 2 other abilities though, so he's not always going to be using his A1, obviously. He's not always going to have that shield up. But, I mean, still, it's pretty crazy. It doesn't say how long the shield lasts. So, I mean, if it's like a 2-turn shield, then that's going to be really good. If it's a 1-turn shield, not so much. But we will see on that. For his A2 here, attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance or 100% chance when booked of decreasing the turn meters by 15% of enemies under 1 or more poison debuffs. So that's interesting. It is an AoE, but how often do you really have AoE poisons going out? I mean, unless you're using like a Zavia or a Tomb Lord or something, it's not too likely. Also has a 75% chance of placing a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns on enemies under 2 or more poison debuffs. Again, not very likely to proc, but if you can do it, like if you have a Tomb Lord that goes out first and puts out 2 poisons on everyone, then that is very good. They're going to have their turn meter decreased by 15% and get a 30% decreased speed. And finally, it has a 100% chance when booked of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn on enemies under 3 or more poison debuffs. Again, very unlikely for 3. I mean, it's almost inconceivable that you'd have an AoE ability for 3 poisons out on everyone. So, yeah, I don't know. It seems like it should pair well with someone who could do that. But, I mean, only legendary champions really give AoE poison, and that's mostly, like, you know, Bad El'Khazar, Zavia, stuff like that, and so there are better things to do with those. I mean, this guy could pair really well with a Bad El'Khazar, but, I mean, I think maybe 1% of the player base has him, you know. It's not very likely that you're going to have these 2 guys in conjunction, but if you do, more power to you. He will be very good for you in waves then. Instantly activates this skill when this champion is revived by Elemental Conjurer. So on Inferno Golem, we also had an ability like this. The Pyretic Release, instantly activate this skill when champion is revived by Elemental Conjurer. So that's another champion that we are going to get into in a minute here. But basically this is a 3-way tandem ability between these guys. So Elemental Conjurer is a reviver, obviously, and if he brings them back, they get to use these skills. So it's very interesting. Seems like they should have some sort of viability together. Unfortunately, they can't all be in faction wars together, which you'll see in a second here, but still very interesting. It'll be cool to see how they all play together. So this is going to be on a 3-turn cooldown. I don't know how much damage it's going to do, but could be quite good, especially when paired with someone, like I said, Tomb Lord, Zavia, Bad El'Khazar, if you do happen to have those champions. Now let's take a look at his A3 here. Places a 25% strengthen buff on all allies for 2 turns and a 50% ally protection buff on all allies except this champion for 2 turns. This is on a 3-turn cooldown. This is very good. He is going to be taking in a ton of the damage. First of all, I mean, 25% less damage off the bat, very good. And then he takes half of that. He has a huge HP pool. He has good base defense. This is going to be huge for keeping people alive. I think this is going to make him viable in Clan Boss for a similar type of role as we have, what's his name? Tyrant Exiled doing. And he has Void Affinity, so he's going to be good in every dungeon. So, Yeah, I think this really brings some viability for Clan Boss. We may see him paired with Skull Crusher for a double ally protection ability, and I think it could be very cool. On his passive here, when attacked, has a 50% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff on the attacker for 2 turns. That books up to a 75% chance. Whenever an ally is attacked while under a strengthen buff, has a 50% chance of placing a provoke debuff on the attacker for 1 turn, so that's 75% as well when booked. Increases the champion's max HP by 5% whenever an enemy receives damage from a poison debuff placed by this champion. Whenever an enemy receives damage from a poison debuff placed by this champion, also decreases their max HP by 5%. So now you're probably thinking, oh, well, I mean, this is how his A2 works. Obviously, he's placing the poisons on them as they're attacking him. But if you think about it, in dungeons, you're going to be bringing some CC in. And in this case, basically what you have to rely on is, first of all, you get the ally protection and strengthen up. Then you probably take 2 turns because for the most part, you're going to be outspeeding the dungeons. So it falls off on some of your champions. You do take a hit from the opposing wave, and then you go and knock them down. So how often are they really going to be coming in and attacking this guy? He's going to have huge HP once you build him, so he's not going to be the primary focus. So honestly, I don't think we're going to see a lot of value out of this passive combined with the A2. It's really just not very likely that it's going to happen. I suppose if you're progressing and you're having a lot of trouble with the dungeons and the waves are taking forever, then yeah, you might see some value out of it, but that's not going to be the case for most people at the moment. So I do think it's an interesting concept. I do like the idea of him, and I do think he's going to be very strong, even without the passive working that well. But yeah, overall, I just don't think it was designed that well. I think he should have just had an ability that places poison rather than a passive, or maybe his passive just places poison debuff on everyone. Now, that would probably be a little bit too strong, though. So it would be tough to work out. Like I said, I just don't think we're going to see a lot of use from this, but it is very interesting. Cannot decrease a single champion's max HP by more than 25% in one battle, so also will not decrease boss's max HP, cannot increase his champion's max HP by more than 50%, so he can get to very high max HP, but can't decrease boss's max HP, which I think is stupid, because decreased max HP only really matters against bosses. I mean, I guess there's an argument to be made it could be good against the Ice Golem, but only one of the adds even attacks you anyways, so I don't know about that. And then finally, let's go ahead and take a look at his aura here. Increases ally resist in all battles by 80. Pretty decent for arena. He's going to be very good for a tanky arena team that you just want to survive all of the nukes and then power through. So I think he can definitely come into arena as well and help you out. He's going to be pretty strong there for those kind of teams. And that is Uras the Soul Cage. Now let's move on to Elemental Conjurer here. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. That is a 70% chance when booked. Very strong. Block buffs is a very good ability. In waves, in arena, a lot of things put buffs on, so if you're blocking them, that's good. I should mention that Elemental Conjurer is an epic in the Dark Elves Force Affinity, which is nice. Base HP is 17,000, which is very good. Which is a support. 1,000 base attack is not bad. 1,167 base defense is good. 98 base speed is decent. And an extra 15 accuracy is pretty cool. So very good A1 here. Let's take a look at the A2. Has a 75% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies. It's a 100% chance when booked on a 3-turn cooldown. Very good. It's like Madame Ceres kind of. As far as doing that goes, also has a 100% chance when booked of placing a 25% weaken debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. So if you pair this champion with someone like a Stag Knight or whatever, you're basically getting the effect of a Dracomorph as far as getting the decreased defense and weaken, and you're removing all buffs. So a lot can really be done here. This is going to be very good for dungeons. AoE weaken you get a lot of utility out of. It does boost your damage by a lot, especially when paired with decreased defense. So I think this champion is going to be very good. Unfortunately, Force Affinity is not amazing against Ice Golem. So again, they just don't really think these things through that well. Like if you're going through Ice Golem on the second wave, you get that reflect damage. If this champion's on your team, like Madame Serious, you can remove that. It'd be very good. This is on a 3-turn cooldown instead of 4, so it'd be much more consistent as far as getting that value. But of course, they decided to make her the one affinity that would be bad for Ice Golem 20. I guess you could build her as a tank and just let her take the damage, but the problem with that is on the A3 here, revives a dead ally with 50% HP and 50% turn meter on a 4-turn cooldown, then places a block debuff buff on them for 2 turns. Very good, but if you're bringing her into Ice Golem, she's going to get targeted. You do not want your reviver targeted. You want them to be the one that sits back with a bunch of HP, good defense, and just revives people as they go down. So again, unfortunately not going to be that great in Ice Golem, but still probably usable. We'll also revive Inferno Golem or Uras the Soul Cage with 30% HP and 30% turn meter if they are on the same team and not the target of the skill. So that's pretty good if you have both of them on your team and someone else, and all 3 of those go down, but Elemental Conjurer is still up. She says, alright, I'm going to pick up that 3rd person. The other 2 pop back up as well with 30% HP and turn meter. So, very good skill, especially when used in conjunction with those 2. So that's going to be pretty interesting to see how it goes. Maybe some use in Arena, although I don't see her outlasting Uras the Soul Cage. She'd probably go down first. Her base HP and her base HP is a lot lower. Her base defense is probably slightly higher, I think. But yeah, I mean, if she's not getting targeted, like let's say it is a magic affinity champion or whatever, may go for Uras first. If either Inferno Golem or Uras the Soul Cage are the target of the skill, that champion will be revived with 50% HP and 50% turn meter and a block debuff for 2 turns. So that's basically saying, obviously they will get the full 50% if you actually target them with it. And then I assume if the other one is down as well, that one will still be raised with the 30%. So pretty interesting here. It'll be cool to see what you can do with these 3 as far as how good they are in dungeons and arena, stuff like that. And finally, increase ally AC in all battles by 40 on the aura. Pretty decent for earlier game as far as if you don't have the accuracy you need. Like let's say you're progressing through the dragon, and dragon you need roughly 10 accuracy per level, so by the time you get to 20, you know, you want to have 200 accuracy. So let's say you're progressing and you have the champs, you have the gear to get through 20 potentially, but you don't have the accuracy, you haven't been able to build your Great Hall up that well yet. She could come in, be your lead, and get it done for you. So again, accuracy aura is pretty good for progression, not great for late game though. And then we have this last champion here, Thea the Tomb Angel. Now Panda Killer wanted to save the rest of her kit for his next video, so make sure to check him out, see when that drops. But he did show off the A1 here, which is very interesting. Let's take a look at her first. She is a Force Affinity Legendary in the Knight's Revenant. I know she's blocked here, but she looks pretty cool. Base HP is 16,000, base attack very high, 1542. She is an attack champion, base defense a little low, 969. Base speed very low, 90. Especially for a legendary, like 90 would be pretty typical for like an uncommon to a rare. Crit rate 15%, crit damage 63, so you're getting a 13% boost to crit damage, which is going to make her hit harder again. And then resistance and accuracy are normal, but the A1 here, very interesting, attacks 2 times at random, so you don't get to choose who you're hitting. Although I have noticed with random skills, it seems like it always hits whoever you target and one other person. So it's not really at random. You can kind of choose who you're going to hit at least once. Has a 75% chance of placing a Hex debuff for 5 turns. That's a 100% chance when booked. Hex is something that the Minotaur does, and it has not been seen on any champion before. So this is very interesting. This debuff cannot be resisted. Each critical hit decreases the cooldown of the Not of This World skill by 1 turn. We don't know what that skill is yet. We haven't seen it, but it's going to be very interesting. Hex increases the damage that they take, so it'll be really cool to see how she pairs with other people. I assume she's going to have an AoE that's just going to hit massively hard. Who knows, she may be something that's coming up in Arena, or maybe speed farm strats. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with her, and I can't wait to see the rest of her kit. But yeah, that's going to be it. That's all the champions that we have to look at today. It's going to be interesting to see because Urost and Thea are both legendaries, so I'm not sure we're going to get both of them from the Battle Pass. One of them, I'm assuming Thea, might not be a part of it, but rather another champion that they would release at the same time, or maybe even a little bit later, that would be a different kind of event, maybe a fusion, something along those lines. So it'll be really interesting to see. But that's going to be it for today, guys, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below or join the Discord if you have anything you'd like to talk about, like these champions coming up. I'm super excited for it. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff to do with these champions. I'm going to definitely be ranking up a lot of them and just seeing how they work. I'm really excited. We don't know when it's coming because, of course, it's Polarium. So don't get your hopes up that it's going to be like next week or something, because it's probably not. This is all data mined information, not stuff that they've released, so we're not expecting it anytime soon. But I'm still excited, and let me know if you are as well in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, guys.